From the ashes I arise, like the phoenix taking flight. From the ashes I arise, out of the darkness and into the light. As I walk through the valley in the darkest of times, and it seems those I love are gone, I will go through the fire, I will go through the pain. God will give me the strength to go on. I will go on. I will go on. I will go on. From the ashes I arise, like the phoenix taking flight. From the ashes I arise, out of the darkness and into the light. Life will bring another valley, for to love I must risk loss, and I know that the darkness precedes the dawn. I will go through that fire, I will go through that pain, and God gives me the strength to go on. I must go on. I will go on. I'm going on. From the ashes I rise, like the phoenix taking flight. From the ashes I arise, out of the darkness and into the light. From the ashes I arise, like the phoenix taking flight. From the ashes I arise, out of the darkness and into the light. I will go on. I will go on.
Oh my, thank you, Michael. Between Michael's singing and Meredith's meditation, I don't know how much more I really need to say. I have a whole bunch of notes here, by the way. As usual, I'm not sure exactly what order things are going to come out, but today probably even a little more so than usual. So this could be a 10-minute talk or a half hour. We'll see where it ends up falling. The Phoenix and the Dragon. There are lots of stories about these creatures, and as Meredith and I were discussing before the service, they're fairly universal symbols. Around the world, you find examples of phoenixes and dragons from different cultures with different attributes. But I'm going to start with a story of the Chinese version of the dragon and the phoenix. So this is an ancient story. There was, at one time, a great white jade dragon that lived along one side of the celestial river in a cave. On the other side of the celestial river lived the golden phoenix. And they would see each other as the dragon would swim in the waters and the phoenix would fly above. But it wasn't until one day that they both ended up on an enchanted island that they really got to know each other. And on that island, they found this stone that seemed to have a light of its own. And the phoenix thought, we should transform this stone. We should polish this stone up. We should make it something even more special. And the dragon agreed with her. And he said, yes, we can polish this stone into a great pearl. And so using claws and beaks and water from the river and water from dewdrops, they polished this stone. Took long time, years of polishing this stone until it became this beautiful pearl. And that pearl shed light, great light in every direction. And they both loved this pearl. And so they stayed with it on the island and guarded it. Now, the Queen of the Heavens saw the light of this pearl and saw how beautiful it was and wanted it for herself. So she sent a henchman down. And overnight, while the dragon and the phoenix were asleep, the pearl was stolen and taken up to the heavens and locked away. Well, when the dragon and the phoenix awoke, they were, of course, distraught. This pearl that they had created was gone. They searched everywhere, all around the world, looking for this pearl, but couldn't find it because, of course, it was locked away in the heavens. It wasn't until the Queen of the Heavens was having a birthday party, and she invited the other gods, and so she unlocked all 9 locks that held this pearl back from the world, and she brought it out to show and to share, and that was when the light shone out. And all the way down in the world, the dragon and the phoenix saw that light and they recognized it. So they flew up to that heavenly palace and they confronted the Queen of the Heavens and said, that's our pearl. And she said, no, this is a beautiful pearl. It belongs with me, the Queen of the Heavens. And they said, that is not a pearl that came from you or came from the heavens. We made that ourselves. And so they struggled to get the pearl, but in struggling, it fell. And it fell not only to the floor, but out the door and all the way down to the ground. The dragon and the phoenix were so distraught, they flew down trying to catch it before it smashed, but they did not get to it in time. However, it didn't smash. When it hit the world, it instead transformed into a beautiful clear green lake. So the dragon settled down on one side of the lake, the phoenix settled down on the other side of the lake, and they chose to guard it for eternity, and they both transformed themselves into mountains guarding the lake, which remain to this day. So this is the story, this particular story of the dragon and the phoenix. There's a lot going on in that story. When you want to break it down and look at symbolism, there's a whole lot going on. So let's start with the dragon and the phoenix in general, what they mean. As was brought up earlier, they represent abundance and prosperity and harmony. If you're familiar with the yin-yang symbol there in the upper right, they represent that balance between masculine and feminine, the balance between the dark and the light. They are part of that whole balance of the universe. And I will say from my understanding when I did a brief study of Taoism, the Taoist understanding of the creation of the universe was that in the beginning, there was nothing. From the nothing came the something. And then because the something wanted to know itself, it split into 2 somethings. And it's that tension between the 2 somethings from which everything else is created. So the tension between the light and the dark, the tension between the masculine and the feminine, the tension between all of these things is what brings out creation, brings us into the world between earth and heaven, which is also yin-yang. We are created there. And I like how you may have noticed there's a little bit of mirroring when you say, in the beginning there was nothing. Because, of course, we're more familiar with Genesis, where in the beginning there was God. What did God create? Light. And then what did God immediately do? Separate the light from the dark. It is the same concept. In different words, it is the same concept. So we have this whole creation thing going on, which mirrors some of the things we're more familiar with. And then there are these themes coming out in the story itself, themes of transformation. These two creatures saw this worldly thing and wanted to transform it into something greater. I think we've all been there, right? Here's this worldly thing. I want to make it the best it can be. I want to elevate it. So they transformed this worldly thing. They took off its roughness. They polished it until it illuminated. Now, illumination, light, in most ancient beliefs, as well as modern-day metaphysics, still means enlightenment, divine knowledge, wisdom, all of those things. So they took this external thing to them and polished it until there was enlightenment. It's an intentional transformation, but it's also a transformation of something outside of themselves. We often use that, right? The things outside of ourselves for transformation. I read this great book. Awesome. I heard this great talk. Great. There's this wonderful piece of music that really elevates me. All wonderful tools. But those are still external to us unless we bring them in and make them part of ourselves. The true transformation has to be within, which is why, in their case, it could be taken. Because it was not a personal transformation until the end. In the end, when that external thing that they loved so dearly unintentionally transformed on its own, it was up to them to then personally transform in order to stay with it. It had to be a personal, internal, and permanent at that point transformation. Same with us. We can change on the outside all we want. If we don't change on the inside, if we don't personally make that change, it's always something that can be easily dropped, something that can be stolen from us, robbed of us. We need to transform inside. Now, there's another aspect to this story, which seems, of course, very petty overall. The queen of the heavens, stealing this thing. It's like she's a goddess. What does she need to steal something for? I mean, right? But she really wanted it because it was so beautiful. So, in this story, we find a theme that we find a lot in ancient stories. The more worldly beings have somehow made these strides that divinity says, that's too much. You've gone too far now. You've stepped into my realm. I want that. You can't have that. That's too dangerous for you. So we see it here because she wanted to take that from them. Another prominent one to me is from ancient Greek mythology, which I see Meredith already nodding her head. Prometheus, the story of Prometheus, whose name means forethought, by the way, for those of you that it's been a minute since you took your mythology classes. But Prometheus, a titan who is said to have created humanity from a lump of clay, which might sound vaguely familiar, and also gave humanity not only knowledge, but actually had the audacity to give humanity fire. And the gods were so upset that Prometheus had shared fire with everybody, so upset that Zeus, king of the gods, took Prometheus, chained him to the side of a mountain, and let an eagle come, rip out his liver, and eat it every day because he was immortal, so his liver would grow back. So it was a constant daily torture. For added bonus, the ancient Greeks believed that the liver was the seat of emotions. So this was not meant to be just a physically painful thing. It was meant to be emotionally painful for him too. For those that are concerned about him, legend does say that he was freed by Heracles much later, so he's not there to this day. And these are lovely myth stories, right? But we find these stories biblically as well. Garden of Eden. Things are great until you learn too much You've learned about good and evil. Good and evil. Yin yang. You've started stepping into what God is supposed to know. So we've got to get retribution. We've got to kick you out of that garden, right? Later, Tower of Babel. Ooh, we're going to build a tower so high that we can get to the heavens and rival God. Oh, well, no, now it's too high. Let me break your tower. And for extra measure, you all now speak different languages. Congratulations, you can't collaborate anymore. These are all examples, and there are more. I would get into the crucifixion, but that's a whole different talk. So this idea of you move forward and we pull you back, and you move forward and we pull you back. For people that have been around Unity for a while, there's a familiar pattern that we have talked about there. The pattern is called chemicalization. To the best of my knowledge, I first learned about that when I read H. Emily Cady's book, Lessons in Truth. Wonderful book. It was my first New Thought book, and my heavens, did it open my eyes to a lot of things. For those unfamiliar, what chemicalization means, because it sounds so technical, right? What it means is, as you expand your knowledge, as you expand yourself, as you grow spiritually, you're going to have all kinds of old patterns. The things that you learned that really you're starting to outgrow, and they no longer serve you, but they want to hold on. Your old patterns do not like change. And so when you take those 2 steps forward, they are going to come up to want to pull you back. This comes up in all kinds of ways. We see it coming up with subconscious things that we do to set ourselves up for failure. We see it coming back with, say, addiction and temptations. We see it coming from things outside of ourselves, where the world seems to be pulling us back, because everything's connected. So it doesn't matter where the pattern is coming from, the process is the same. As you move forward, elements of your inner life and elements of the world are going to try to pull you back. Sometimes you can see it and go, that's chemicalization. I see you. You have no power over me. Be gone. Other times it's much harder. Other times it will blindside you. Sometimes it will bring you to your knees, and it can be really difficult. But if you have the knowledge beforehand to be looking for it, it is easier to go, okay, this was a punch to the gut, but I also know what you're trying to do, and you're trying to keep me safe. You're trying to hold me back to the things that I know as I'm trying to grow. I'm going to choose to grow anyway. That's why we're here, is to grow, not to be static, not to be safe. We are here to grow and to help others to grow and to create a better life and a better world out of that growth. There were lyrics in the opening song, for those of you that may have missed the opening song. I know time change, some people are still not here, and they're going to show up like right as we're done. Right? It's true. Happens every year. But in Higher Place from Daniel Nahmod, there were lyrics like, no more backward, no more downward, no more spinning around and around. That, right? He's talking about exactly that. I don't need to think of this worldly path of, I'm going forward, you're pulling me back. I'm going up to a higher place where that back and forth isn't as problematic, where I can see with more perspective from that higher elevation what's going on. We affirmed at the beginning of this year that change was possible. It seems fairly straightforward, right, and simple. There's a reason why we started with that at the beginning of this year, possibilities. Because when you start alerting yourself, alerting your subconscious, alerting your spiritual being that, hey, change is coming, and I know it, and I'm open to it, chemicalization steps back a little bit the more you can get that ingrained, right? If you are set up for change, then when the change shows up, you're like, oh, that's the change that I was ready for. Doesn't mean chemicalization still won't try to pull you back. But that's why we started with change. So that now when we're really looking at growth, we want to not just change, but grow. There's a bigger challenge, but we've already accepted that we're changing. There's a saying that goes, change is inevitable, growth is optional, right? Everything's going to change regardless. You can fight it, you can welcome it, it's going to change. But whether you grow from it, that's up to you. It is a choice that you have to make. You have to see it for what it is and see it for the growth that it offers you. That sense, and Michael, thank you again for singing that song. There's a whole lot I could go into about my personal life with dragons and phoenixes and that song. I won't. I wrote that song a number of years ago at a particularly challenging time. And that sense of the realization, this is a journey, right? I'm going through a valley. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. It's moving through it. As Bob Euler always used to say, you move through the valley of the shadow of death, you do not stop and set up camp, right? You move through it. And that whole sense of, from those ashes, we still arise. We are still here. If you are here and you are breathing, there's a reason for it. So you rise and you move on, and some days it's easy, and some days it is hard as all get out. But you rise up and you move forward. The yin-yang, love and fear. We often want to say that the opposite of love is hate. It's not. The opposite of love is fear. So if God is love, that opposite, this isn't Satan. We're not talking, no devil thing here. It's distancing ourselves from God. It's blinding ourselves to God. It's trying to find anything other than God, right? Michael and I just yesterday saw the film The Jesus Revolution. Interesting movie. It was all about the Jesus movement of the late 60s, early 70s, where the hippies were all, or as they became known, the Jesus freaks at that point, right? But one of the people that spearheaded that was himself a hippie, who was pointing out to a more traditional clergyman that the young folks, the hippies, yeah, they were doing a lot of drugs and they were doing like free love, sex with everybody, all of this stuff, because they were looking for God and they didn't know how to find it, and the churches weren't welcoming them, right? So that sense of it's either love or it's feeling separated from it. It's God or feeling separated from it, which we label as fear, which we experience as fear. And it's in that tension in between the two where we do our most growth. When you can see the love and you can feel the fear and you can still move through the fear toward this, that's where you grow the most. Now, I'm not advocating that you introduce more fear into your life so that you get the tension. Please, the world will give you adequate fear to deal with. Absolutely. But when you experience it, there's a book, who is it, Jampolsky, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That sense of, yeah, it's there and I can see it, the chemicalization, right? I recognize it, but this is what I want. I want to move toward growth. I want to move toward love. I want to move toward where God is bringing me and not turn away from that. So, as I'm getting toward the end of this, I want to do a little bit of a mini meditation. Meredith did such a beautiful meditation, but it's a little more toward a practical practice, because we can talk about this stuff until I'm blue in the face. If we can't apply anything, what good is it to any of us, right? Fifth unity principle, we have to take these things into action. Quick review for anybody that's new. First unity principle, God is all there is. And these are really shorthand. Second is that because God is everywhere, God's in me. Third is that my thoughts, my beliefs, my understandings are what actually create my life. That's my perception of my life. So, number 4, I'm going to pray and meditate and align myself with God so that, number 5, I can live all of that truth. Because if I don't live it, it's only theoretical. I have to put it into action and live it. So, If you are willing, you can go ahead and close your eyes for just a moment. Again, this will be brief. Put your hands in your lap or wherever they are comfortable, and I want you to start doing some deep breaths into that pit of your stomach, your center of wisdom. And I want you to visualize that breath coming into and out of the pit of your stomach as that light, the light of that beautiful pearl, right? That enlightenment. But it is not external to you. It is part of you. This light is your light. So keep that breathing going. And as you relax into that breathing, I'm going to ask you to do the slightly heavier work now of identifying a fear that you carry. Now, for some of you, you may be thinking, I'm advanced enough, I really don't experience fear. If that's what you're feeling, that's great. Good for you. I'm sure you find discomforts in things that may not be the way you expected or wanted them to be. This could be very minor. These fears or discomforts could be as simple as, I made a comment to somebody about their outfit because I liked it and I think they misunderstood me. It's a fairly simple fear or discomfort. It could be as severe as, I don't know how I'm paying my bills next week. I don't know what's going on with my health. Or maybe it's about somebody else, their addiction, their childbirth, whatever might be going on. Find that fear or that discomfort. Identify it. Mentally name that thing. And now just a little trickier. I want you to identify where you carry that in your body. Where in your body does that fear sit? The Greeks believed the liver carried emotions. That's not where I carry most of my fear or discomfort. Where does it sit for you? And as you're finding where that sits in your body, I now want you to visualize a color that you identify with that fear. These are different person to person and fear or discomfort to fear or discomfort. So identify a color and a location in your body and visualize that. And now that you have the location and the color, if it feels right to you, I want you to allow my words to be your words. I see my fear and discomfort for what it is. I know it is trying to keep me safe, but it is standing in the way of my growth. And my faith and my God are bigger than any fear or discomfort I carry. I want you to see that color in your body diminishing as I repeat those words. I see my fear and discomfort for what it is. I know it is trying to keep me safe, but it is standing in the way of my growth. My faith and my God are bigger than any fear or discomfort that I carry. And see that color vanishing, and let go of your worldly fear. Let go of that chemicalization that tries to hold you back as I repeat those words one last time. I see my fear and discomfort for what it is. I know it is trying to keep me safe, but it is standing in the way of my growth. My faith and my God are bigger than any fear or discomfort I carry. And as you bring your focus back to the room, I'm going to close with Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, and that which is good and acceptable and perfect, just like you. And so it is. Thank you.